Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Wilhelm Scream, and welcome back to the channel for more Destiny 2 news and intel. And in today's video, it's going to be a daily PSA focused, as there is a whole bunch of stuff that is leaving us tomorrow at the weekly reset, which will also mark the end of Act 2 and the launch of Act 3 of Heresy. So I would suggest, if any of these interest you, jump on to Destiny at least once within the next 24 hours in order to pick them up. One of the items that we're going to discuss in today's video has actually only been sold once before, and one was unique to PvP. So also make sure that you pick up any remaining loot from Guardian games that you're missing out on. If there was anything from the event card that you hadn't actually acquired yet, as this will also be leaving us tomorrow. I think it's been a pretty good Guardian games overall. But, yep, we're going to be losing it. If you didn't get the skimmer last Guardian Games and you don't have one yet, this is your last chance to pick up a skimmer unless there is one available from XUR again in the future. I'm sure a lot of people bought the XUR surfboard or the XURF board when that was available. But if you didn't have a Guardian Game skimmer, make sure you pick that up, as well as any of the other loot, as I mentioned. Also, if you were still looking for a decent piece of Artifice armor for your class item, Artifice armor is still very relevant as far as armor goes until at least the summer's DLC launch of Frontiers, or is it Apollo? I think it might be Apollo that launches over the summer. So until that whole rework on the armor, Artifice armor is still going to be very relevant, and I still think it will be even heading into that next expansion. I think it'll be some sort of rework to the armor, but in any case, you can pick up a piece of Artifice armor still from Eva Levant. And then we have a couple of weapons that I would think about maybe picking up. The Trace Rifle is really good, although next season, Act 3, next episode, will be more favoring rocket launchers, I guess, with the the artifact mods. So some good stuff there. Also over at the Eververse store, if you didn't have a chance to pick up any of these shaders, emotes, or exotic ornaments, we have one for the Vex Mythoclast, which is also the featured weapon, or is the featured raid this week. For this weapon is the Vault of Glass. So if you happen to acquire a Vex Mythoclast this week, maybe consider picking up this ornament for it. We also had the runner-up vehicle. We had the Hawker Shell, which I'm sure is going to go down as kind of famous considering. And then we had the Winged Victory. Most of these things very Guardian Games focused. The Applause and Accolades emote was one that I made sure to pick up. Over for the Vanguard this week, we had the Slammer Sword Adept available from the GM Nightfall. Remember, the GM Nightfall nodes all stay now, regardless of what week it is, so you can farm out the weapon you want. It's, I think, a great feature added to the GM Nightfall node, that you can just farm the easiest strike, unless you're going for the Conqueror, of course. That is, of course, if you've completed Conqueror already, so if not, you're still stuck with the weekly rotation. But in any case, this won't be available for quite some time. I think this is the last in the current rotation, or maybe the Scintillation is, so second to last. So we'll have to go through all of these again before we get back to the Slammer. So if you didn't have the Adept version, or even the normal version, this is a very good sword. It's good for DPS as well as just overall movement if you're looking for something to just speed up sometimes your runtime through any particular mission. If you didn't know exactly what I'm talking about, I always keep, I believe, one on my person. Yeah, I still have a few, but this is the one that I've upgraded for a while with Cold Steel, Eager Edge, as well as Relentless Strike. So Eager Edge is what I'll use for just straight up movement, And if I'm actually doing DPS, I'll use Relentless Strike. Over at Banshee 44, we had a few interesting weapons available this week. And though the roles don't seem to rotate quite as much or quite as often as I would like, I don't know if we're just getting bad RNG on these roles. They do seem to rotate, but maybe just not enough. But we do have a Hollow Denial, again, with Dragonfly and Extrovert. This is a Deep Sight activation weapon, so it can be crafted if you have the Deep Sight Harmonizers, but this is a pretty good roll right out of the box. Looking to see another enhanced weapon available, become available from Banshee again soon, hopefully, as they are now sold through Banshee. That's enhanceable weapons right out of the box from Banshee, but fortunately none this week. We do have a Bad Omens, though, with Snapshot Sight and Genesis. Might not be terrible considering the artifact mods that we're going to be getting tomorrow. We have a 7th Seraph Saw with auto-loading holster and disruption break. Sail Spy Pitch Glass, another deep sight activation craftable weapon with clown cartridge, multi-kill clip, and right hook. Also not a bad roll. We have the Enigma, the Glaive, which if you haven't tried Glaives in PvP as of late, they're actually really good. This one comes with the Tempered Trust Rod, which is the absolute best half that you can have on a Glaive. It actually increases your melee speed quite well, maybe about a half a step, so just gives you a little bit of an extra advantage. So not a bad Glaive to pick up if you don't have a good Void one. And then we have a Hollowed Words with Quick Draw and Unrelenting. So remember, all of those should rotate tomorrow, though we might get a few repeats, unfortunately. Also leaving us tomorrow until Friday, again, will be our old buddy XUR. And this weekend, he had a couple of unique items, most notably on our homepage. We had the Might of Multi-Tool Catalyst, as well as the Fourth Horseman Catalyst. So the Fourth Horseman Catalyst is actually really good for DPS. And this used to only be available through a quest, I believe. So I'm sure some people are missing it. I obviously have to fully upgrade mine. But actually, when you do have the Catalyst unlocked, it will provide a 5th shot. So only increases that DPS. Of course, you have to be very close to the enemy. But there's still several places where this can come in very handy. And the Might of Multi-Tool Catalyst was only available through PvP. So I'm sure there's plenty of players who are without this catalyst, and if you don't have it, yeah, pick it up. I don't believe the Fourth Horseman Catalyst has been sold very often. I think there was one time it was sold before, but two interesting catalysts. Again, if you don't have the Might of Multi-Tool because you're just not a PvP player, you're a PvE focused guy or lady, then this is certainly a good one to pick up. It does make this weapon quite a bit more deadly in PvP if you look to maybe jump into the fray a little bit more often. We also have the Foe Tracer with a 68 roll. We had the Atius Wards with a 67 roll, and we had the Transversus Steps with a 68 roll. Very high rolls all around on the exotics this week. We also had exotic class items available. So if you were looking to farm out exotic class items, now's the last day you'll do it, at least until next Friday. We don't know if XUR will bring exotic class items next weekend. Hopefully he will. But they weren't available, I think, in the previous 3 weeks leading up to this weekend. We also had the Wave Splitter, which is good to pick up if you don't have it. Under the Strange Gear offers, we had a Thunderlord, which is always good to have. Cerberus +1. Not a bad Hawkmoon roll. Nothing really stand out as far as the legendary weapons went. I believe the Hunter's got a really good sword this week, but of course everybody can use that now. Nothing terribly stand out as far as legendary armor went. Over at Ada1, or Shada1, as she's affectionately become named, as there's really not too much she brings to the table anymore. I think Ada1 needs a little bit of a rebuff. I used to like when the mods were available, even though I'm glad mods are no longer sold. But it was kind of cool that she was the mod vendor. Now all we have is a very old set of armor and some unique shaders. We had the gold leaf, we had the new Pacific Sink, and the Dead Orbit camo. If any of these you're missing, make sure to pick them up before tomorrow. And let me know down in the comments if you think 801 needs a little bit of an update. I think Banshee and 801, I think Banshee was perfect, and I think they need to maybe bring Banshee's powers back a little bit as far as weapons rolls go, and maybe 801 with a little bit of an update to the armor rolls, maybe. And lastly, before we head into a couple of farms and glitches that you can use before tomorrow, some AFK farming. There's a couple of AFK farms. There was one actually that I forgot to mention earlier this week, but it won't be available again for at least another 3 weeks. We're going to head over to St. 14. We're going to get our running shoes on because the load times in the tower have been very, very slow today. So I know everybody's screaming, why didn't you just teleport back to the courtyard? I don't know if I'd make the courtyard, to be honest. For some reason, this weekend, I don't know why, but it's been very slow load times. But we have, of course, our Trials weapon for this week. Seems like Trials didn't really go over too well. I did talk about that a little bit in my previous videos, that it was a Guardian Games themed Trials of Osiris, so there was class-based matchmaking, which means you had to have at least one Titan, one Hunter, and one Warlock on your team, and that kind of messed things up a bit. I think Hunters were just having a really hard time getting into games, but if you were going to farm out Trials this weekend, we had the XUR'S Wrath, I always say it incorrectly, Adept, available this week. Now remember, you can still farm out all the other weapons, just not in the Adept form. That's only going to be this one this week. But also with the Lighthouse passage, remember you can still get a lot of loot. And now very quickly, we'll head around solar system really fast. Tomorrow we'll be losing the Crota's End raid as the featured raid, as well as the Vault of Glass raid. So if you're looking to farm out the Vex, you have at least 24 hours. We'll also be getting an update on our Exoitc mission. Over in the EDZ, we had Warlord's Ruin as one of our featured dungeons this week. And then over in the Cosmodrome, we had the Grasp of Avarice. Remember, you'll also see Grasp of Avarice over in the Eternity as well. Sort of a little confusing sometimes that it shows up in two different areas. And then we have over in the Throne World, our featured dungeon will also be getting reset tomorrow with the Sundered Doctrine, if you had any checkpoints saved for farming this out. Down on the moon, and I did forget to mention this earlier in the week, which hopefully I don't get a black screen on the load screen. No. Why? Why, game? But we did have, come on, moon, load, 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 almost there. We do have the In the Deep mission, hopefully it'll load up, available this week, which is the only AFK farm still available in the game. It's still not loading. It's so incredible. This is what I was talking about when I said I'm afraid to load into the courtyard. Technical difficulties always seem to follow me in the load times of this game. There we go. We had the In the Deep mission available as the campaign mission, and if you go to the very end of this mission, I've covered this many times, so if you want to know a little bit more about it, I'll make sure to have a video linked in the top right corner, but essentially this is the only AFK farm for catalysts, XP, all kinds of stuff, weapon XP. Still in the game, it comes every 3 weeks. You just have to get to the end of the mission, and then you can have an infinite thrall zone for as long as you want. And also, and I'm sure that this will be patched fairly soon, but over in the Crucible, and if you were really only focused in farming Guardian games for the last day or so, you can head over into the private matches and go to game options, go to collision, set the match time to 5 minutes, set the score limit to 5, load in, capture a zone, you'll get a bronze medal, and you can finish out contender cards doing this. For gold medals, you can do this AFK. Once you get to the, or very passively at least, once you get to the end of the match, make sure to head to orbit versus letting the match actually end, because that'll save all your presets on the game type. Another fairly easy farm, and I'm sure that'll be patched soon, unfortunately. Also won't be relevant, of course, after Guardian games. Real Dez joining me in the tower today. Shout out to him. But that'll conclude all the information in today's video. Hopefully you found something in this video helpful. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram. It'll be linked in the description box down below. Remember, any of those things will also enter you into any future giveaways on this channel. And we do one every 1,000 subscribers, so you never want to miss out. When we reach 100,000 subscribers on the channel, we'll be giving away a new console or a video card if you play on PC. If you watched to this point in the video, you can leave a hashtag Heresy or a hashtag The Final Shape or a hashtag Real Dez, because he's hanging out with me, or a hashtag Heresy Act 3 in the comment section down below for another entry into the next giveaway for this video. Look forward to bringing you all the information for tomorrow, as we will be getting a new featured Nightfall strike in the Sunless cell, so look out for a complete guide as well as the weekly updates for Act 3 on that. And once more, I'm Wilhelm Scream. Thanks so much for watching, and of course, we will see you next time.